Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another video, and I'm pleased to say, I'm privileged to say, I have been joined by a guest once again to talk about Chelsea. It's the international break. What a guest to have. Yannick, Football Therapy. Your channel has, I guess I say, blown up recently, especially in the Chelsea community, continuing to grow. I think you've just, is it 15k you've just hit? Is it or is it 14?
To be on the channel. I think about to touch 15, certainly by the end of the day, I would hope. So yeah, just you're getting there. Yeah, I wouldn't say blowing up, but I'm very, very pleased with the progress, and long may it continue, Dan. So yeah, all good, man.
Yeah, definitely great to have you on, because what I appreciate about your channel is how you take such an in-depth look at things, and are clearly trying to sort of look at things more deeper than sort of surface level analysis, which I really appreciate, and I think we need more of on YouTube, especially with the Chelsea community. But of course, we've got to get into tactics, which of course is your speciality. You love talking about the game in sort of such a detailed way, talking about Chelsea's tactics. I think the thing to talk about, obviously, the game on Saturday, which we were both at, and the frustration of that second half after such a positive, which we'll come on to some of the positives of that game later, but sort of lapses in concentration, which is something that was a frustration last season under Sarri. We'd have good first halves, and then we come out in the second half and we concede on a few occasions. This time it was sort of similar to that in the fact that we came out and it felt like within seconds we easily conceded to Sheffield United, which then turned the half. Do you think there is a connection to this with Sarri? Because, of course, he is playing with similar players who did play under Sarri. Is this a mentality problem? What do you think is causing this? Do you think it's a coincidence rather than an actual connection?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting question, mate. And the thing is, obviously, it's incredibly reminiscent of the situation with Sarri, but it's very, very difficult to link connections because it's a different tactical approach you're playing. You make the argument there is a lot of similar players in there, but there's also a lot of fresh new players that have been playing in other clubs, they've been promoted, they've been brought back from loan, and their license to play is a much more expressive one under Frank than Sarri, so perhaps there's less pressure to perhaps making the meticulous, exact tactical movements, so perhaps they're less stressed. So it is very, very difficult to make the link, but you're right, it is incredibly prevalent in this current Chelsea side. It's almost like, remember last season under Sarri, it was like that 10-minute window. Well, certainly this season under Frank Lampard, whether it's a whole 10 minutes, it's kind of like the whole second half, but in terms of the immediacy in the second half, it very much is an immediate thing. It's almost like opposition coaches have looked at Chelsea under Frank in the very limited sample size and been like, look, they're dangerous, they're vulnerable in the transition, but they're very, very vulnerable. As soon as that second half whistle goes, jump on them. Just jump on them straight away and we'll get something. And then, the whole psychological landscape of a game changes. For example, Chelsea are very strong in the first half. They'll impose themselves against the opposition. And then, the opposition might feel inferior. Their heads might drop. Oh, God, they're all over us. We've conceded 2 goals and it's just not looking good. But as soon as that other goal, the opposition goal goes in, everything changes, right? And they can get that really early doors in the second half through this peculiar vulnerability that Chelsea have. So, they've obviously looked at Frank and said, do that. And I think more from what you said with this side, it's more, I'd like to say more of a naivety across the board because it is a very, very young team. The youngest Chelsea side we've ever seen in the Premier League. Perhaps it is as simple as we're just lacking that sort of a couple of heads in there to be like, no, calm down. Even if they do concede that goal or, hopefully to prevent it in the first place. And there's that sort of panic, I guess, across the board, but it is very hard to put down. It's very hard to sort of say, oh, it's this, it's that. But sadly, it's something we've seen before, and hopefully it's something that will be coached out, or a little bit more time and experience, we'll see less and less of it, hopefully.
I think the points you make there about the small sample size we've had. I mean, if you look back 7 days, or even not longer than that now, against Norwich, where we had a frantic first half, we go into Norwich. In some ways, you could argue have the ascendancy, or at least being at home, having the crowd coming back twice. But the way we controlled that second half and came out and looked so structured, We kept the ball, we kept possession, we kept probing, and then eventually Tammy scoring that brilliant goal. It's so tough currently to judge, because not only are we only 4 games into the Premier League season, not only is this Frank is only 6 weeks or maybe over that now, in terms of, especially in terms of a actual season, you take away pre-season, he's barely into his reign. And also the amount of players still to come back that you think are going to be first team players that are going to radically change. When you think N'Golo Kante has had barely any time on the pitch because of his injuries, those are all things that can balance out. So as you said, it's going to be interesting to see how Lampard deals with that, and once those players come in, how they have an impact. And you talk about wiser heads. Now, there is really no wiser head in that team, in truth, than Chelsea's captain, Cesar Azpilicueta. Now, I wrote an article for the Chelsea Echo yesterday about how time is running out for Dave because of Chelsea's, I guess, hope to modernise that fullback position, which I think what was interesting is at the top of the game now, how crucial that position has become and how it's evolved. It's a lot more... I wouldn't say it's happened over two years, even like Klopp and Guardiola, even though they have used it, especially Klopp with Alexander-Arnold. But just the game has changed, and the fact that now a fullback, even in like Pep's system, is seen to be as good technically on the ball as a central midfielder. A lot like what we're seeing with goalkeepers and then central defenders. Not just being good on one-on-ones, not just being good at putting in a good tackle, but you've got to be good going forward. Reece James, I know as a player you've talked about and said, he can't come back soon enough. Do you think it is too simplistic to lay all the blame on Dave? And do you think it is also too simplistic to believe that Reece James is going to fix the problem? Because when researching for my article yesterday and looking at stats and looking at assists, Reece James only created 3 assists last season. Now, I do know he played in several different positions, and as well he did play for a poor Wigan side. But are we piling too much pressure onto a young kid who's hasn't had any time in the Premier League for Chelsea?
Okay, well, you asked a lot of questions there. Yes, it's too simplistic to blame Dave. Yes, it's too simplistic to assume Reece James will solve all the problems. He was robbed, I'd argue, of a lot of assists at Wigan because he was putting in perfect balls constantly. They weren't converted. He'd get a lot more in this Chelsea side. Okay, so first off, in Azpilicueta, just to talk about him a little bit, he's probably the hardest working, most professional player we have in the squad. And that goes for the starry-eyed kids who want to do everything to play for Chelsea as well. He bleeds blue. He's probably the most experienced in terms of proper Chelsea inverted commas player. And he's probably played the most football out of everyone, even including N'Golo Kante maybe. And he played every bloody minute of every game ever, didn't he, SB? I think he's overcooked a little bit. He's 30 now. I feel like certain games he could be invaluable in terms of camping in and one-on-one defending. But like you say, I'm a big advocate of the modern day fullback being a dynamic just a player that has loads of attributes as a footballer. Now, I don't want to hate on Dave because Azpilicueta has sort of been a little bit a victim of circumstance in terms of systemically as well. And that goes for under Sarri as well in terms of how heavy flanked, lopsided Chelsea's attack is. I'm a huge fan of Emerson. I've talked about him on my channel. I'm actually releasing a video today, if I can put in a quick minor plug, Monday at 5 p.m. That has a lot to do with Emerson. I think you, Dan, find really interesting as well. But with Azpilicueta, a lot of space is left next to him, and he often looks exposed. But at the end of the day, there was that mental statistic of the Sheffield game where he conceded possession at least 3 times more than any other player. I mean, I think a lot of that is to do with maybe how he gets exposed. So that's, to answer your first question, is it that simple? I'd say no, even though he does look like a weak link regardless at the moment. But he's not the worst thing ever to happen to Chelsea, I don't want to be that reactionary, but with Reece James, he is the answer he's in the model of said dynamic modern footballing fullback. He's got the engine. I feel like Emerson's perfect for our left back slot. And, in terms of his numbers, he's actually the best performing Chelsea player statistically, Emerson. He's got the highest rating. He's got the highest numbers over Mason Mount, over Tammy Abraham. He's an unsung hero. I feel like if we had something that offered something even closely similar on the right-hand side, Emerson's been amazing defensively. He's been our best defender, and he's been one of our best attackers. So, if we had something even remotely similar on the right-hand side, that would go change the game for Chelsea. Reece James is part of that. He's played with, the other kids. He knows how to play with them. He's got this sort of desire. He's gone up through the ranks with them. He knows how to combine with them. He can move into midfield. He knows what it's like to slot into different spaces of the pitch, to occupy different areas and defend and combine. And he's got a better engine on him. He's got a better cross on him. And he's a tank. He's taller. He's just better. So again, the system would have to help him out. And he is a kid, you're right. But the fact is, he won consecutive player of the months at Wigan. He won their player of the season. He was moved into midfield to stop them from getting relegated, which is a direct quote from Alex Goldberg, which he said a few times, which is probably true. I trust him on that. Essentially, he's not going to change anything, but I don't think it is pressure, because when a right back gets introduced into the team, football nerds like you and I might be like, oh, he's going to change the whole makeup of the team, but like perhaps the more generic fan, they're not going to expect that. So it's not like a striker, it's not like Tammy wearing the number 9 as a 21-year-old. So I don't think the pressure will get to him that much, and I feel like him developing with the team, he has to take the number 1 spot. So sorry for ranting on for ages, man, but I feel like a bit of everything. I don't want to put too much pressure on, but I genuinely do believe he'd make a huge difference.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I did barrage you with a lot of questions there, so I was
like logging them in my head.
But partly my fault as well. Being a bit more simplistic, and you talked about tactics there. The big challenges for Frank this season, we have predominantly played. I mean, it's really hard for me to tell, because 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, I thought up to when I was at the last preseason game at Gladbach, it looked like he was going to go 4-2-3-1, which he started at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
But a couple of days later, in Istanbul, he changes to what, to me, looked like very similar to what Sarri was implementing last year. 4-3-3, Jorginho as the anchor, Kante ahead of him, Kovacic on the other side. What have been your thoughts so far? Am I right in saying as the games have gone on, it looks more like Frank is leaning towards a 4-3-3, or do you think he may shift back to that 4-2-3-1 as the season goes on and as the players get better?
Well, so the great thing about Frank as Chelsea manager is he's not wedded to this idealistic philosophy. He's a young coach. He hasn't got the ego. He wants to play a general way, and he's willing to consult with staff, and he's willing to evolve and transform with the team, which is superb. It comes as one of the benefits of that comes with an experienced coach like Frank. He's like, you know what? I'm new to the game. I feel like I'm good enough to learn on the job, and I feel like with that he'll change. So he wanted to play 4-2-3-1. It's something that he played a lot with Derby. It's something that he likes to play, because the 4-2-3-1 affords a type of style that's really good for high energetic press. And obviously he played a lot of 4-2-3-1 in his playing career under like Jose Mourinho and other coaches. So he's completely he knows it down to a T. He wants to get the most out of his midfielders. He's an amazing midfielder. He kind of figured that. But as a salient point you make, we did really well against Liverpool. That was Sarri's 4-3-3. He said, you know what, revert to type. Let's be a bit more solid. You've played well against City. I know we got turned over 6-0 against City, but we played very well in the final against them. We played well at home against them. We put some good performances in against Liverpool. So he probably said, I've only just got to revert to type, but have a little bit more license. When you go forward, you don't have to do this combination or this, like Sarri said. Be a little bit more free. And you looked at that, like you and me did, like Chelsea fans did, and went, that was good. That was a little bit more like of a safety blanket. We felt more secure. So he's evolving. If you look at it's so different to Sarri then, because basically it moves all the time. If we play 4-2-3-1, he does this a little bit with the 4-3-3 as well. Out of possession, it's a straight 4-4-2 a lot of the time. And if Mason Mount's playing, he's in the 2. So he goes forward, and then it's a 2 banks of 4. So it's different when you deploy the diamond, but that's a different conversation. But 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, it goes to 4-4-2. Mount pushes forward because he's a very energetic player, and he joins whether Batshuayi, not so much Giroud because he can't run, and the 2 strikers or forwards in this instance with Mount and the striker, they press together in unison, and then when they're in possession, they go back to their shape and they attack. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of shape shifting, and that's the great thing about Frank Lampard. The 4-2-3-1, like many 4-2-3-1s, can become a 4-5-1, as can the 4-3-3. So there's a lot of shape shifting. I feel like now he's going to start with a 4-3-3 shape, but in certain phases of play, you have Mount in number 10 if he's in the wing, or Mount. Do you know what I mean? So there's license to change, and that's the great thing I think about Frank at the moment. I loved Sarri's ideology. I was a Sarri fan. I love the idea of one type of football that, if done properly, is unbeatable. Like, there's something, mathematically beautiful about that if you're a football nerd, and I wasn't against that at all. But I'm also all for Frank's adaptability and pragmatism. So with that will come a lot of shape shifting in terms of formation.
Yeah, definitely, I agree, and I wanted to see Sarri succeed as well. And I think there were elements of Sarri's work that I thought shouldn't be dropped. I thought, in terms of modernising our play, I thought Kepa was a great signing. I thought Jorginho at the base of midfield, once again, modernising our play, being able to play out from the back.
Yes, yeah, hugely. I just want to reiterate your point there before you move on. A really important point from you there, mate. Playing out from the back. Chelsea are on their game. There's no one better than playing out from the back now in the Premier League. So we have Sarri to thank for that, and we've got Sarri to thank for a lot of stuff. But you're right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, mate. I just wanted to say that's an incredibly important point.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that is something. If we want to compete with the top of the Premier League now and get back to challenging for titles, look at who is succeeding at the moment. It's not counter-attacking football, it's possession based, or it's on the front foot football. You have to be good playing out from the back, and that's what both Liverpool and Manchester City in different ways have been able to do. I think that, just your point there on Frank's versatility, I think that's the exciting thing about this season is the amount of options he has. He can play Mount in a number 10, he can play Mount out wide, which I actually really like. I like Mount out wide, especially when Ruben comes back and Callum comes back. He's going to have a lot of options there to play with, and I think this 9 months there's a lot of excitement about, because as you've expressed, it can, at times it can look like a 4-4-2, it can be a diamond, which he tried in pre-season. I think Lamps will be able to work with that and try to experiment, which is something very exciting for a Chelsea manager. One thing I want to touch on before we wrap up here is Tammy Abraham. It's amazing to see a young striker score, and it's amazing once again to look like, I don't want to put too much pressure on him, but to look like we have a player who can stick it in the back of the net pretty simply. All the tactics and all the methods and all the philosophies we can have. We have struggled since Diego has left to find a player who can regularly convert chances. And I thought that, as you pointed out in your review, I thought that the impressive thing compared to Norwich, which were two very clean, very impressive, very top quality strikes, was against Sheffield United. Those were more scruffy, more... I guess even at points I felt like half chances where it's especially the first one where he's just based on instinct and he gets there and he puts it in the back of the net. Those are as important and probably will make up the majority of his goals and chances than the ones against Norwich. Just talking about Tammy and how he's improved, how in terms of stats and his ability, how have you seen him improve under Frank and to where he is now, where he's scoring goals?
Well, firstly, on that point you just said, the scrappy, like poachers goals, I'd argue they're more important for Chelsea, because Chelsea have got good players. You'll see good goals from Chelsea players, from midfielders and wide forwards. You see them cutting in, putting in the top corner. It's amazing that Tammy did that half volley finish and finished his first goal from outside the box in Norwich. Lovely, have that all day. But what Chelsea have missed, they've missed a sniffer in the box. It's all very well buying these like semi-galactico players that sort of fail in the Premier League. We need someone who knows what it's like to come up against English defenders or English football defenders and just instinctively snap at it and put it in the goal. It does look like Tammy's that man. In terms of his development, I think Tammy's always been like this. I think he is this kind of goal scorer. It's just what he does. He's always scored goals and he's always backed himself. I think everyone's reiterated or sort of echoed the sentiment of how Swansea was a poor sample size. It just didn't give him a chance to showcase his skills. But put him in a team where he's going to get chances, he'll get it. I think the most positive thing, I don't think it's developing his game, because I think he's always been like that. And I think he will naturally just get better because he's young. I think Frank's just literally said, look, mate, I believe in you. Do what you always do and, learn my tactics. But what is impressive is how he took the number 9 shirt. He did not. I mean, I think he wanted the number 9 shirt. I mean, that's big for a 21-year-old. He's only really been scoring goals in the championship.
Especially
He's like, no,
Chelsea.
no. Well, exactly. We all know the curse of the number 9 shirt, right? So that's big. And obviously, missing that penalty in the Super Cup, enduring some, abhorrent racism online and all the negative stuff, and he's just come out on top. That's probably more impressive because that's the stuff that you need to push through to feel comfortable enough to do your own thing. And his own thing is good, man, and it's exactly what we need. So he's wearing the weight of the shirt isn't weighing him down, but he's surrounded by his bros. He's young. He's got Mason, who he's been combining with since he was a little kid. He's got, he's training every day with people like, Ruben will be back soon. He's training with Callum. He's training with Reece. Frank's his coach. Jody's known Jody for years. Do you know what I mean? So he feels comfortable. He's not like some foreign striker who's sort of made friends kind of with the new team and everyone that generally being nice to him. He feels like he's been surrounded by his mates and his family. So with that support, I think it probably alleviates the pressure. And remember, the media as well, they want to see Tammy Abraham score goals. No rival fan who says whatever abuse about Chelsea, or you got diving forward, or you got, they always try and say derogatory comments about your players. It's like no one's going to hate on Tammy. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of nice, and I feel like he's the kind of player that's in a good environment. He's got a good opportunity to play his natural game, which he's a goal scorer, and he's done it against 2 promoted teams. Great. So far, you could banter and say, well, he's a championship striker who so far scored goals against championship teams. But, he gets the odd one again. If he gets 4 goals against the top 6 in the 8 fixtures or something like that, then great. And then he bags a few more. Anything north of 13, 14 goals in the Premier League is absolutely superb for me for his first season. And I think he can do it, mate. So, yeah, there you go.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think the points you make there are brilliant about just the small things we don't sort of take into consideration about a player feeling happy and comfortable in an environment as well. I think that has probably helped, and having a manager who believes in you like Lampard does and has put belief into the squad. Even players like Billy Gilmore is like, no, whatever we think about that decision, the fact that he's willing and says, I've got a midfielder on a bench, I'm going to use my midfielder. I don't care the fact that he's 17. And I think it's a brave move, and I think Tammy, I predicted 15 goals, and I think that I'm still going to stick with that because you never know what could happen in the season. But I think he's clearly showing at the moment that he's shunning the criticism, the racism. He's really responded well to that abhorrent abuse, and I think it's so good that the fans have embraced him as expected, and he's performing really well. I know you haven't got long, mate, so I just want to talk to you about and get your just thoughts on the season. We're in the international break now, so there's a little bit of time, as we've done today, to thinking time, and sort of, I'm sure you will on your channel, about looking back a bit at that first section. Once we get into past the international break, we've got a really challenging 7 days. Wolves away at Molineux, Valencia in the Champions League, and then Liverpool, which is the big one. This is, of course, now where it's not so much, because I was a little bit worried when Leicester about us running out of steam, and that being a midweek game. This is where you need rotation, you need good fitness. Lampard, I would say, or any manager you'd think would need to have his team nailed down, or at least know, even though he is in that evolution period of knowing what his team's going to be, the challenge of League, Champions League, League Cup, and travelling far and wide. Your thoughts on the season going forward? Fears, concerns, excitement, whatever you sort of think about going forward now.
Well, you alluded to something earlier in the video, mate, about injuries. So, Reece James, LOFTUS-CHEEK, Callum HUDSON-ODOI, Antonio Rudiger, and N'Golo Kante, all that injured. They could all be starters in his preferred starting 11, like you just alluded to, first team. So they could all absolutely be in his strongest first team. And, I don't think neither you and I would be surprised if that was the case. In terms of rotation, Chelsea got a squad, man. People say transfer ban, no. Chelsea got a squad. In the cups, Marcus Alonso can start. People, there is a unity in that squad. Like Tammy did some. I was listening to the London is Blue podcast, and I don't want to say I saw this because I heard it. Dan Levine was talking to those American guys, and he was saying he saw a moment where Tammy did a great piece of work. centre forward play where it didn't amount to anything, but he did a really good piece of centre forward play, and then like occupied some centre backs and drove the ball forward. And Giroud was warming up on the sideline, and he just got really excited and applauded him. Now this is the World Cup winning Olivier Giroud, who's been like put on the bench by this championship striker, and he's being the professional role model, and he's buzzing that Tammy's done this. Now I think Olivier Giroud will have a big part to play in the Champions League personally, and that's the cream of the crop competition. But I feel like everyone's in it together. I feel like Marcus Alonso, he's won the Premier League, he's won Europa League. He probably thinks he might go maybe next summer or something. I don't know. He'll be totally fine giving his all in a cup game. I feel like all the players, no one has any negative, feelings about Lampard, and the one guy who did is now, playing for Arsenal. So there's a good feeling in the camp. I feel like the rotation will be fine. I feel like Chelsea will have enough. Lampard's constantly saying how he's happy with the squad for the moment. And in terms of how I feel moving forwards, I feel pretty good. I mean, 5 points out of 12 is bad for what we've got at the moment. But we're looking at the problems that we've got, and the problems are completely coachable. Something I've said on my channel. I feel like we've got good players. We don't have Galactico players, but we've got good players, serviceable, top 4 level players. Even if we don't reach top 4, that's fine. It's because of, like you say, the transitional period. But I feel like the energy levels are better. It's more concentration laps than burnout now. But it looked like burnout the first couple of games. It looks like that won't be a problem now. Excuse me. And really, it's just like a concentration thing, a few tactical tweaks, and Chelsea look like a very, very threatening side at times. If you can look amazing for 30 minutes, and you don't stop due to fatigue, you can look amazing for longer. And Chelsea have good players, so I feel like with Frank, he hasn't got the ego to say my way or the highway. He's assessed the problems. The players all want to play for him. There's a feel-good feeling. If you take 5 points out of 12 and you'll still feel really, really good about the season, which I do, there's something in the air and something's going right. So I'm not saying Chelsea need to have an amazing season, but I'm so intrigued, as world football should be so intrigued about the Frank Lampard Chelsea project, that let's just see how it goes. And you're not going to start judging it until you've had a decent sample size, until you've given them the chance to fix it. If we've got these same problems in 7 months' time, then you think, oh, okay. But if you see an improvement, a few big scalps, a few good results against big teams, a few more England call-ups from young Chelsea players, the media's going to love it. They lap up everything Lampard did, very reminiscent of Jose Mourinho when he joined Chelsea. I feel like the positives massively outweigh the negatives, and the negatives are bad on an immediate objective level, but that's all they are. It's an immediate objective level. And I feel like if you look forwards and you look at who's getting a chance and who's doing what, I'm feeling positive, Dan, mate. So that's pretty much my outlook at the moment.
Yeah, wonderful stuff. I do agree with you there, and I think that just the feeling of optimism and excitement, I think, around the majority of fans currently is something that's so refreshing after how toxic it got at the back end of last season, no matter what way you felt about the manager. And I think the fact that we could move from a situation where we have barely any academy graduates in the first team to a position where you can realistically see 5 to 6, I think is a massive step in the right direction. And personally, for me, if we, by the end of this season, if Lampard can embed those players into first-team regulars that are Chelsea players that feel confident within the side, and we feel confident that they are Chelsea players and can work within his system, that's going to save us hundreds of millions of pounds in transfer fees. To me, that is an improvement. That is a marked improvement to where we are and thinking longer term, and that's the hope that Lampard brings, I think. So thank you, Yannick, so much for giving us your time. Wonderful discussion. I'd love to do it again sometime, hopefully for longer on another day, because there's so much more we could have dived into there. No worries. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to check out Yannick's channel. Now, I'll give you the chance to plug everything in terms of YouTube, online, just so I don't get it wrong. Okay. So where can people find you online?
Well, thank you, mate. Just if everyone could check out my YouTube, that would mean a lot. It's called Football Therapy. It's basically a Chelsea YouTube channel at present. Maybe I'm thinking to expanding it one day, hence the name not being related to Chelsea, but daily videos on Chelsea Football Club. Like Dan said, like tactical analysis, different, a bit more of a different perspective, I'd like to hope. So all that, you can follow me on Twitter at Football Therapy. Which is the Football Therapy Twitter, or my more personal one, which is at Chelsea Yannick. And that's pretty much all the plugs, man.
Defo, go and check out his channel, Twitter, follow, subscribe, like, do all of that good stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let us know your thoughts on the discussion today, everything we talked about in the comments below. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe and also hit that notification bell to never miss an upload. Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow me on Twitter, @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.